A good icebreaker here would be talking about coaching philosophy. I think this is one of the most important elements that coaches kind of forego. We're always talking about the X's and O's theory and methodology, how I use this to help that kind of athlete. And the reality is, we're all privy to that information. It's just how you're able to synthesize it and apply some form of complexity to the simplicity of what we've already learned. We've all taken the CS, so we all have read the same Tudor Bompa textbook. But how we apply that information in varying circumstances is what's going to make us really good coaches, right? So the way I see coaching, we're dynamic problem solvers, right? Pragmatic problem solvers. We're able to apply varying methods and means to meet the needs and demands of what is in front of us. And what is in front of us is athletes. So we're problem solvers, and we have to be able to solve those problems through a strong understanding of psychology, theory, and methodology. And that's where I think coaching sits, is at that three-way cross section. Theory is a rather important element. I think that goes without saying. We have to have a strong theoretical understanding. However, I think where a lot of coaches go wrong is that they live and die by the theory, and then that filters into their methodology, right? They're closely correlated. So if you live and die by the theory and research and this, that, and the other, and you don't actually have any sort of anecdotal or practical inputs based on things you've done yourself, tried yourself, and tested, then you're going to be lacking, right? Because a lot of this theory, like we learn in school and all things, is perfect world stuff. 1 + 1 = 2. Well, the reality is most times in the field that we work in, 1 + 1 happens to equal 47 for some reason, right? So we have to find out why, and we have to overcome these obstacles by applying the basic theory and the basic methodology in a more complex manner. And the complexity doesn't come with the complexity of rep schemes and sets. It comes with creating our own ways of solving the problem, right? So maybe it comes from your own form of archetyping. Maybe it comes from your own variation of a squat pattern, or anyways, there's 1,000 different things we could talk about, but it's all about overcoming with the means and methods that we have available to us, not just living and dying by the theory and methodology. I think people would agree on this. However, it is something that a lot of people are blind to. Well, I learned in my textbook that 3x6 at 85%, like my athletes have to be hitting 85% to have strength gains. It's like, if you've ever coached young training 10-year athletes of almost any age, you just hit them with some volume and GPP, slow tempos, and their strength goes way up. Muscular coordination, just the general training knowledge, getting their central nervous system to be more used to that stimulus, et cetera, right? So learned skills are probably going to have a bigger transfer over than refined skills through whatever the theory says. Makes sense? All right, methodology. I mean, as far as methods go in terms of working with sporting populations, there's a bajillion ways to crack an egg, right? And they're mainly going to be influenced by, sport, season, phase, resources, obviously logistics in general, the cohort you're working with. There's so many variables. So as far as methodology goes, I think that is the main thing that a lot of coaches have to start designing themselves, or coming up with their own methodology towards problem solving their specific problems, right? And then psychology, it sits at the top of the pyramid for me, because you have to learn from yourself. You have to have a unique understanding of where you do things well, where you do things suboptimal, and where you do things wrong. Being willing to learn from your mistakes, test and see what things work, what things don't. Ask questions of yourself, be introspective. And then more importantly, having a strong awareness of the psychological inputs associated with your cohort. I work with a lot of high school athletes, understanding the stressors that they undergo and have to deal with, in the variation in that. People have different sensitivities to fatigue and stressors in general, right? different backgrounds, the way they learn, right? Everything's going to be different. And we want to control the variables as much as we possibly can. But we're never going to be able to do all that, right? We're never going to be able to solve for every input and make sure everyone's good. So that's the beauty of the role. But being aware that your biases towards theory and methodology link into the psychological interactions between yourself as a coach and athletes, and your athletes with training itself, right? So our greatest currency is the capacity to create meaningful connections, culture, and community, cohesion. Lots of C's there, like I've said in my last video. But it's understanding that you have to coach the athlete. You have to be willing to forego the conventional theory and methodology and come up with something that's context specific. And ultimately, our goal is to facilitate long-term development for athletes, regardless of level. So being pragmatic, being adaptive, pivot, whatever you want to call it, is going to be your ultimate weapon, right? And that starts with going back and wondering, like, how do you view training? What influences your training? What do you not like about other training styles? And then kind of putting that to the wayside and just looking at who's in front of you and being like, what do they need? What issues could arise if I do this? What things could I do better? What do other people do? Why did they do it? And then, ultimately you're going to have a roadmap of many different streets and sidewalks and all kinds of things branching all over, because there's no one way to solve an issue. And that ultimately is going to be the web of coaching capacity that you create in yourself. And that's how I view coaching. Let me know your thoughts.